morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you happen to be watching. Welcome to the Six Bugle podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Ruiz, and today we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, and you may know him from seeing him around from time to time, not just in the fire service, but also if you're a metalhead, a headbanger from way back, you've probably seen some of his videos and seen where he's been back and forth. Steve Prziborowski, I wanted to make sure I pronounced that right. From a deputy chief retired from Santa Clara County, California. Steve, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Rudy. Great to talk to you. And good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to be on here and share some thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've been around quite a bit, and I know you traveled all over the country and even in the world for as a matter of fact. And you and I have crossed paths at some several conferences, and I've attended some of your conferences, and you as well attended mine, and we just the thing that we do share is a love for the fire service, and we've always it's always benefited us in our career, in our lifestyles, and we this is our way of kind of giving back. And you're still giving back. You're still doing a lot of cool things out there for the fire service, and you've written several books. And I know you're still active in the conferences, but also attending a lot of baseball games. Yeah, what was the last game that you went to?
Uh, 2 nights ago, I caught a doubleheader in Washington. Started out in Tacoma, did a 4-hour drive east to Pasco, Washington. So I had an 11 o'clock game in the morning and a 6 o'clock at night. So it was a good little fun little trip for the last 2 days. Then drove to Eugene, Oregon for a concert last night and back home this morning.
Who did you see last night?
A couple bands that most people wouldn't recognize, but Napalm Death and the Melvins and down in Eugene, Oregon. So I know my wife's like Napalm Death, and it's like, and then of course I'll be seeing something else the next week or listening to something. So I have very
Yeah,
diverse music taste. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm an old headbanger from way back, and I remember talking to some people about, oh, you got to listen to this group called the Fabulous Poodles. And I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure you recognize that band.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
couldn't name a song, but definitely recognize the
yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah. I got their album right, right. So, and albums are coming back. That's all cool.
Everything goes full circle in life.
That's right. That's right. Well, I got my collection. Well, enough about that. So we're here to talk about some things that you're doing for the fire service. You've written a couple books, and more specifically about promotional exams and how to prepare for those exams. And you know as well as I do, there is always opportunities for firefighters to grow and to, especially from within, become officers, lieutenants, captains, and so forth. And a lot of times, you know, we do assessment centers too, and a lot of times we find that they're not prepared for those assessment centers, or more frequently, they're not prepared for the positions. So I wanted to talk to you about your book, Courage Under Fire Leadership. And in that book, you mentioned there's a leadership crisis in both the fire service and the world in general. What specific leadership gaps have you observed in administrative roles within the fire service? And what practical strategies can administrative leaders implement to bridge these specific gaps?
Well, I think there is a leadership crisis for a variety of reasons, as well as a followership crisis. But when I talk about administrative leaders, that runs the gamut. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of administrative professionals that come from the civilian ranks that are there at administration to support the firehouses and the personnel out there. And then there's also, depending on the size of the department, firefighters all the way up to fire chiefs that are serving in administrative positions. So I think in today's world, one of the things I always talk about, a lot of people go, what's the easiest way to get promoted or pass the test? And I'm like, I'm not here to teach you how to pass the test. You got to put in the work. There is no fast track. But I think one of the biggest things I've always been taught from when I was a brand new firefighter was to prepare for the position, not the test. You got to be exposed to the test, like we talked about, to pass the test and to do well, but that doesn't help prepare you for the position. And we do a great job, I think, around the country preparing people to become brand new firefighters. Most states, most departments will either require you to have firefighter one or two, or they'll put you through that. And then obviously some extensive probationary period. But where I think we really lack is when it gets to the administrative positions, because it's almost night and day from what we hire someone on as a firefighter for, and then of course we expect, no firefighter ever said, let's become a firefighter to drive a desk. It's we get to become chief officers. Obviously, we understand those are our primary roles, secondary to emergency response. So I think preparing for the position is so critical because, and there's a lot of things we can do. I mean, obviously, we touched on a little bit of, yeah, you can take classes, you can read books, but again, those are a part of the big picture. And I think some of the biggest things we can do to help people prepare for the position is provide mentorship. I mean, each of us should be seeking out our own mentors. Each of us should also be mentoring others. Also, job uh, collaboration. Whenever we bring people in from the outside of civilian positions, whether it's a person that's going to be the executive assistant to the fire chief or maybe just administrative assistant supporting someone in the department, a lot of times those civilian positions come in without really much of an exposure to the fire department. And that's not a bad or good thing. They just don't, they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And a lot of people bring in some good skill sets to fill these positions. Um, but then they don't understand what the fire department's about. I think there's a gap. So what we try to do at Santa Clara County Fire, and I can't speak if it's still going on, but we try to do a lot of onboarding that is exposuring. So pairing people up with other people as sort of like a senior mentor, so to speak, so they can
Sure.
learn rules of the road, rules of engagement, provide different exposure to different divisions. I'll use an example when we brought on one of our last administrative assistants to the training division when I was the training deputy chief. She was great at what she did accounting wise, and she had the skill sets to be an administrative assistant to help support me and the rest of the training division, but she didn't understand the fire department. So we made a point of assigning a battalion, doing a ride along with the battalion chief all day long to have her have lunch at the firehouse, have
Yeah.
him take her around the fire stations, meet people, get exposure. Because otherwise, if you're at the office, you're never going to get a chance to meet people, just know names.
Right.
Drive around the area, learn the target hazards, get to know people. And then also different areas too. Try to expose them to our dispatch center, encourage them to visit firehouses. So I think a lot of that cross-pollination to cross-train people can help people get into those positions. Whether you're an admin assistant, whether you're a firefighter coming into a position in the office, at least on a temporary basis, I think is critical. Mentoring, job sharing, not job sharing, but job exposure.
Right.
Um, and just as much, I guess, I mean, I hate to use the word onboarding, but more exposure, I think, is better.
No, you're absolutely right. I know what you're saying. And a lot of times, usually when this happens is because they're on light duty, right? And now
Yeah.
they have to do some sort of admin and they go in kicking and screaming. They don't want to do that, but once they do see the reality of what is typically done on a day-to-day basis, they have a better understanding about budgeting, about strategic planning, all the administrative things that have to be done and that are expected. But more importantly, when you get out to those administrative roles, when you start to talk to the citizens or city council members or even city administrators, go to those types of meetings. That's where it really kind of opens their eyes on the back works of fire departments and helps them to understand things a little bit better. Not really accept the things that they're handing down, but at least they have a better understanding of the process of how the inner workings are. And at least in my experience, that's what typically happens. So that's always
Well,
a good thing.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're
I, I agree, and I probably get tarred and feathered for saying this, but in a perfect world, if we could expose every firefighter at some point in their career, whether they stay a firefighter or promote, want to become a fire chief, a battalion chief, or just stay a firefighter, be an engineer, if we could expose them to administrative assignments in some capacity, I think it'd share a better appreciation of what those people do on a regular basis. Because there are some people that only work at admin or have never gone anywhere else, and there's nothing wrong with that.
right.
But then so many times people in the firehouses don't know what the other side of the fence does, so to speak. And I think it's amazing how so many firefighters, like you said, come in kicking and screaming to assignments. Maybe it's a light duty assignment, maybe it's a temporary assignment, maybe it's a voluntold assignment. Like sometimes you're the junior person off probation and we need a captain in the office for 2 years in the train division. Most of those people all come in kicking and screaming, and then they at the far end, the outcome is they usually like the comments I normally hear is, "You guys aren't that bad in here. There's you good people in here. What did you think?" Or holy moly, I learned a lot by being in here for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's like, of course. And the skill sets that they learn, because what a firefighter does is not the same as what someone in the office does in admin. I mean, larger departments have the opportunities usually that have more opportunities for people to work those 40-hour assignments.
Sure.
Um, and to me, the exposure, I mean, I learned so much when I was a firefighter on temporary assignment in the training division. When I came back as a captain for a 2-year assignment in the operations division, working for the operations deputy chief, my eyes were so opened. Our current fire chief right now, when I was the deputy chief of operations, she was the battalion chief assigned to me. So I had battalion chiefs in the field on a 56-hour schedule, but I also had one dedicated 40-hour battalion chief that worked for me. She functioned as a deputy chief. I mean, when I was unavailable, maybe at a meeting, she'd attend meetings for me. And I remember our fire chief, when I was testing for fire chief positions, he goes, if you get a fire chief's job, who should be the next deputy chief operations? I go, her, because she's basically doing my job in my absence. She had that skill set. I mean, she's a smart person. She's our fire chief right now, and she's doing a great job from what I hear.
Good.
But you learn so much. So for anybody that's ever thinking about maybe becoming a fire chief, or even just a deputy or assistant chief, because not everyone wants to be a fire chief, or maybe just division chief, battalion chief, shift commander, anytime we can get people that exposure, because again, the fun stuff's out in the field, I get it, but there's so many other skills that can be learned when we expose people to them. Whether it's voluntary, whether it's, I mean, mandatory is a bad word because usually that doesn't work out well, but depending on what the agreement is with the union and the administration, like in our department, we had 40-hour positions for all ranks. And the agreement with the union was that if there had to be someone forced, meaning if you're the training captain, you retire or you get promoted to battalion chief, there's a vacancy. It was a 2-year spot that came open. We would open it up to anybody that was eligible. And usually, of course, there was no takers from the line because there happened to be in
Right.
shift schedule folks. But then it would be the junior person in that rank. And that's what the union agreed to, because the union agreed to, hey, you know what, we need to have someone there. But if you're the junior person, seniority wise, you're going to do your turn in the barrel, for lack of a better term. But again, more exposure, the better, because it's not, the firehouses are great. That's where the service is provided that most people see from the public. But there's also that other side that a lot of people don't appreciate and don't understand because they've never filled that role in some capacity. And I think, again, the more exposure, the more well-rounded people we have.
Right. And usually the members of the Six Bugle podcast or listeners of the Six Bugle podcast are those that are
Mhm.
kind of in between. You know, they serve
Yeah.
the the fire chief and but also serve the firefighters, kind of both in between. You mentioned emphasizing preparation for the position, not just for the promotion. What's the most overlooked aspects of preparation that could make a difference between simply getting promoted versus truly excelling in the new position?
Getting promoted, checking the box, and truly excelling, I think it really comes down to preparing for the position. And there's so many things that you can do. I mean, we can do at our levels that are free. All they do is they cost time and effort. One of our battalion chiefs, I remember he was the low junior battalion chief. There came the 40-hour training BC assignment when I was the training chief. And I had to call him up and say, hey, nobody else put in for it. You're unfortunately going to be in it. We're going to make the best of this. And he goes, but I'm not good at the admin skills. I'm better suited in the field in the firehouses. I go, you're doing a great job out there, but you know what? This is how the system works. Half the other battalion chiefs have already done their turn. It's your turn. I go, and guess what? You're going to come out of this assignment better off because you'll get a lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities out of this position. He came in kicking and screaming. And then at one point, a deputy chief spot opened up at my level, which is all admin. I mean, no emergency response unless it's something significant or you want to go out there, but
Sure.
it's all admin. I remember we ended up talking him out of the position because I go, why do you want to be a deputy chief? You're happy being a battalion chief. But the point I'm trying to get at was I tried my best to expose him to all the duties that I had as a 40-hour admin deputy chief, which was, going to meetings with me, sometimes taking my place because I'm over here in a meeting and I need him in another meeting, like at a city council or county training officers or something else. And that's one thing that, besides talking him out of taking the deputy chief, he retired as a battalion chief. I think he was a heck of a lot more happier that way because he still got to be in the field. but I wish I would have exposed him more to what my job was. Not because number one, he may have to do it in a moment's notice. He was also functioning in our division, so he had to take my place at times. But sometimes our best thing we can do is talking people out of positions. But again, I think exposure is a key thing by if anyone is for every one of us, all of us have an obligation to try to help tap those people on the shoulder. Maybe it's keep them in the current position, maybe it's help get them promoted, but help expose them, mentor them, share things with them. Don't just hold all the knowledge, tight to the chest here like a lot of people do, and
Yeah.
so forth.
Right. Yeah, that's it really is something. Now, you've been traveling extensively during what I talked about earlier during your leadership training across 40 states. I'm not quite there yet. I think I'm only at 24 so far, but I'm trying to reach that same goal, just like my hero Steve here. Um, have you ever noticed how effective administrative support personnel can positively impact the departmental culture or the operational success?
Well, I think the more we can expose the admin folks to what the field folks do, because it is sometimes cats and dogs, the better. And I'll use the example when COVID hit us back in 2020, I think all of us thought that this will be over in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, and we'll be back to normal. Well, lo and behold, we it wasn't that way. But when COVID hit us, I was the training chief. Well, business had to still go on as a fire department. Now, obviously, the bell's going off. The operations chief is busy. We're all busy. But the training division sort of had a lull in the action because we stopped a lot of our we stopped all multi-company training until we could figure out. We still try to get the crews to train on their own.
Hmm.
But at one point, I was almost had too many staff members because we weren't able to go do a lot of things we wanted to do. But it was a perfect opportunity because the fire chief comes up, he goes, Steve, he goes, I hate to say this, he goes, but your division is probably the least impacted by COVID right now. Obviously, EMS was dealing with a lot of stuff. He goes, can I steal your battalion chief, your 40-hour battalion chief, to manage the vaccine clinic for the entire county? So basically, the county board of supervisors were trying to roll out vaccinations for first responders,
Sure.
police, law, fire, and there's 10 different fire departments in our county. There's, private ambulance company, all the different law enforcement agencies, and none of the other fire departments were picking up the ball. And the county board of soups, who was the fire chief's boss, says, you know what? I need you to manage this to get it done. So the battalion chief of training was reassigned for a few months to the county fairgrounds, still working for me. He took one of our two administrative assistants as well, civilian employee, but she was the one. And we talk about impacting the culture. Exposing her to what the county fire family culture is. Our patches said courtesy and service. That was our motto.
Hmm.
And if you don't work for the fire department, sometimes that courtesy and service isn't always, it's customer service a little different for profit businesses. But our training division, and this had nothing to do with me, I just allowed the chief, which the chief could do whatever he wants anyway, but to take battalion chief and the administrative assistant and have them be reassigned to the county fairgrounds to basically coordinate the thousands of vaccinations that were rolling through basically every day of the week. Um, and the point being is that positively impacting the culture is us letting folks know when they come on, if they have the fire department experience, the importance of customer service, they get it. But if people come from outside the department, outside the fire department, just letting them know that we are a service industry, service above self, and sometimes we have to be flexible in our assignments, and be able to adapt with the changes. And I think the train division ended up getting a unit citation award because going above and beyond. Again, it wasn't me at all. I just obviously allowed the fire chief to do what he had the ability to do as the fire chief. But those folks that worked in the training division, I was just so proud of them because they were working extra hours. They weren't complaining. They didn't sign up to run a vaccination clinic.
Right, right.
Here they are processing thousands of people over the course of a handful of months, and just logistically making all this stuff happen. And so I think the more we can not stifle people, but encourage them to, you know, not just be a part of the team, but be a part of the community. And support them as well too, recognizing that we are here for the bigger picture, which is serving the public, serving the community, and sometimes it's not what we signed up for, but that's part of what we do as a fire department.
Absolutely. I think that exemplifies your courage under fire principles that you typically advocate, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, service above self. I mean, and sometimes a friend of mine quoted his leadership quote was, leadership is pissing off people at doses they can tolerate or absorb. And I think that's the challenging part about leadership today is a lot of people want to do boss stuff or be a leader until they actually have to make the tough decisions. And that to me is what courage under fire leadership is
Mhm.
making tough decisions that may not be popular. You
Right,
may not be the cool kid anymore because you said no or said yes,
right.
but aggressively doing our jobs to make sure that we're supporting the community, but also taking care of our folks too, especially, mental health related wise in today's world is so important. Supporting them, getting them the tools and resources they need to do their job so they can enjoy their time off with their family and of course,
Absolutely.
environment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think another key point on top of that is just demonstrate value.
Yeah.
You have value in you, and I value you as a person, as an individual, as a firefighter, as an EMT. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to appreciating everyone's value and what they bring to the table and how they participate as part of the team. We kind of have a tendency to check people off or even just cancel them altogether, right? Because it's just so easy to do that anymore. And we just got to get back to that. We have to learn to appreciate each other a little bit more. And, we don't need another worldwide pandemic to get back to that, right? We
So,
can just we can do that on our own. And as leaders, we have to demonstrate that and set the example so that it becomes the norm again. I think that's what we're missing right now.
well, the phrase "don't forget where you came from" has been always drilled into my head, and it's something we've all heard. But I can see how easy it is to get, to forget where you came from, especially on a 40-hour, and I jokingly say 40-hour admin assignment, because anyone that works in admin where you're, regardless of your role in the fire department, it rarely is at 40 hours. I mean, sometimes there's after hour assignments,
Yeah.
on call assignments, good stuff, bad stuff, and it's so easy to get soaked up in the paperwork and the desk duty stuff to forget the people aspect of the job, and especially the higher up you go in the rank structure as fire chief, the farther away you can get from it. And you're dealing with more people from an external aspect, city council, city manager.
Mm.
It's easy to forget the folks, especially in the field that you're leading. There's always a statement that I use that leadership and teamwork starts at the firehouse because the boots on the ground folks are the ones that 99% of the time solve the problems the public sees. So that we need to have great company officers leading their teams. But on the flip side, if there's functional issues going on the top, which unfortunately there are, we see that every day, in social media and the internet of dysfunctional teams that are at the top command staff level. Well, company officers or battalion chiefs can't really change that. They can only focus on what they can focus on. But especially as chief officers, trying to recognize we're a people business, not just obviously outside the people that need our services, but people inside that need our services too. And I
Right.
think that's something that gets lost, I see, unfortunately, today with votes of no confidence for fire chiefs or disagreements that are aired publicly because you said it best, the leadership doesn't seem to care about us
Hmm.
and they don't give a hoot, for lack
Right.
of a better term. And I think so much of that, it's free, it costs time, a little bit of energy, but it pays off in dividends when you show that how much you care and you value your personnel.
Right. Right. Excellent, excellent. Steve, I certainly do appreciate your time, brother, and your wisdom is always welcomed and appreciated. And I want to get as much people ears to listen to what you have to say as often as possible. So I know you're out there doing a great job, and I just want to say thank you for spending the time with us, with the Six Bugle folks, and I know you're going to continue to do a great job. So Steve Prziborowski, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, sir. And I just want to remind everyone the Six Bugle Conference is coming up September 17th to the 19th here in Perrysburg, Ohio. We're getting a lot of registrations. We got someone from South Dakota coming all the way out to Ohio. So how about that? Uh,
Well, and just to jump in there, I think that says something right there because especially in a lot of states that don't have maybe a lot of population, there is a struggle to find those opportunities, and it's good for you for doing stuff like that because there are places where it's almost like a desert to be able to find things, and Internet's great, social media is great. Obviously, there's things we can find on YouTube, but to be able to put things together like that you can get people physically in the same room to be able to network, build relationships, and find resources, I think is critical in today's world.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And last year we had up to 8 different states, and now we're growing. So we're looking to get more and more people. So just join us on our website, www.thesixbugle.org, and you can register there. And Steve, thanks again very much for your time, brother. You take care.
You too, brother. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate you, and thanks to all for the gift of their time. For those that listen to this, appreciate you.
All right, thank you, sir. And everyone, have a good day. Take care.
All right, take care.